Mai ngā Wairarapa o te karu o te ika Maui, ki te tāpere nui o whātonga, ko ku tapu ai ki rangi whakaomauma. Ko te koro wai o ōku tūpuna ko tararua maunga. Tēnā koutou, kia ora anō tātou katoa. Nau mai hoki mai ki Kahurangi, ko tātou reo o tātou kōrero ko Wairarapa tēnei. Our voices, our stories, our place. Welcome into Kahurangi for session 2 this week. Ko te paraire te kauma waru o hune rua mano rua te kauma tahi. You're here with us for Friday, the 18th of June, session number 2. Kahurangi is a name given to something or someone highly prized, precious or treasured, and is often attributed to taonga of significant beauty and importance, or to distinguished people of great mana, high esteem and prominence. Kahurangi is also a play on words to acknowledge the place of mana whenua here in Wairarapa. Kahu, for and from our kahungunu people, and rangi, for and from our rangitane people. Kahurangi also happens to be my favourite colour. Ko Te Ataahia Eraina Hurihanganui tēnei, you're here with Te Ataahia for this next hour. Join me weekly, please, as I explore our local language and culture. I discover and explore our kahurangi here, new and old, and share important pānui, connecting our kahurangi to our people. Tēnā nō tātou katoa. Now, last week and for our first session, I opened up with a beautiful karakia from one of my tūranga waiwai here in Te Whiti o Wairarapa, which is very close to the studio at Arrow FM, down the road near Gladdy, as some of our locals call it. And I'd like to start again this morning with a different karakia. We spoke about the importance and the intention of karakia as a way of creating space, of setting an intention, and more than that, of sharing a moment in time. Before I get into that, you may hear or have heard my little darling Mare Kura Ana Castorina, who's here in the studio with us. She will be visible at times, however, I have got her microphone off. I do want her to know that she is absolutely free to explore her voice with me and any perspective that she may have to share with us. Mare Kura, vai dire qualcosa? Okay, so she's just let me know that she's quite happy colouring in her pipima book while she sits here, and I'm very grateful to have her presence. Tēnā koe Mare Kura. Lovely to have you here with us this morning. Me karakia tātou. This one here from our Tuhi stationery. For those of you who get to see the visuals, I've just got one of their rātaka, rua mano rua te kaumatahi, their diaries on show at the moment. Again, for any references or resources, heading to www.reorua.co.nz. That's reo, R-E-O for language, rua for the number 2, rua.co.nz, or to my Facebook page, Reo Rua. I will be posting after today's session, which is part two of our introduction session together, for any of the references and resources that I've brought into the studio with me. So from their book, He karakia tīmata, he karakia whakakapi hoki. Kia tau ngā mana ki tanga te mea ngaro, ki runga ki tēnā o tātou. Kia mahea te hua mā kihi, kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori, kia tūturu whakamaua kia tīna. Hui e, taiki e. Kia ora no tātou. Good morning. Mare Kura is asking me for the stickers, and unfortunately, non ci sono moremio. We do not have stickers with us today, but very soon I'm going to play a waiata and give you some of my attention. Thank you again for tuning in. As we explore part 2 of session 1, we will be continuing on some of the journeys that we started to explore together in session 1 last week. In part 1 of session 1 last week. Before I do that, however, I do want to set the scene by putting in a plug for a beautiful sector, the Ace Aotearoa sector, and the reason being is to settle myself into the space of Arrow FM here in Wairarapa. I'm very grateful again to Michael and the team for letting me come in and do this weekly. It's a really good moment for me to catch up on things and to reground myself into my community. I do wear a number of hats professionally and personally, and this week took me out of my community here in Wairarapa over the Remutaka Hill and into Te Whanganui a Tara, where it was my absolute privilege to represent Ace Aotearoa Board with our larger sector for our annual conference. Unfortunately, it was cancelled last year due to COVID, of course, and we did have to have our AGM online. So there were many emotions in the room, and there was a beautiful sense of unity, having had such a long time apart from each other physically. There were 140 people in attendance. We are relatively a new board, and we have just hired our new General Manager, Annalise Robertson. Ko tēnei te mihi aroha ki a koe e te tuakana me tō rangatiratanga, me tō mana motu hake rawa atu. I do want to just give a big shout out and a warm mihi to my friend and colleague, our General Manager for the Ace Aotearoa sector, Annalise Robertson. First wahine and first kukiairini rarotongan rangatira to stand in the position of such a beautiful sector that recognises the learner at the centre and the whānau and community contribution and impact of our sector at large. We had a beautiful few days in Te Whanganui a Tara celebrating all of our many successes despite a trying time. We had our Minister Hipkins come on in and give us sector updates. We had the beautiful Judge Andrew Beecroft and all of his wisdom and humour. And I just wanted to take my hat off to the people working here in Wairarapa as part of our Ace Aotearoa sector, including REAP Wairarapa. Tracy, Peter and your team, tēnā koutou, tēnā kōrua. Thank you all for allowing our community access to quality and practical information and education at all levels. Now, the conference started with Annalise's very beautiful and very strong and moving maiden speech. And I wanted to continue the feeling, if you like, the vibe from that speech. Why? Because she was acknowledging Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's acknowledgement and announcement to the official apology to all Pasifika peoples, in particular our Samoan community, for the dawn raids that happened and our very sad past, if you like, our shared past. And so as our opening waiata, I'd like to start by reflecting on our beautiful and intricate connections to our Pasifika people. Ko tangata whenua tātou, ngai Māori, engari ko tangata o te moana hoki tātou. So it's a reminder to those of us who identify as Māori and whakapapa to this land that we too are tangata o te moana, people of the seas, explorers and navigators of time and of space. And it is our Pasifika whanaunga who are our tuakana, who are our seniors, and we do acknowledge the hurt that they and we have shared over the years and decades. And I'd like to bring you this beautiful waiata from Te Mātara Iorehu, one of the Te Arawa Kapahaka groups from 2020, when they performed a song in dedication to our Samoan brothers and sisters, Tamariki Mokopuna, in regards to the measles outbreak over in the islands. But really it's just about the idea of the power of emotion and our connections as whakapapa, that their pain is our pain, their uprising is our uprising. Tēnā koutou, ko tēnei a te Mātara Iorehu, he waiata tira whakarongo maira, ko te Ataahia tēnei mō Kahurangi.
Atamata ka haru I tuku atu na tamatara ro I te ki atu kai tau ka pate, haere, pakakaro aturo. Ko tēnei wai e tamu ka pate I hapua, no tau I hingai, I te pate kāwaka. Mua ia ina
Tēnā anō tātou katoa. Kia ora tātou. For those of you who've just joined us, this is the Kahurangi program on Arrow FM, and you're listening to Te Ataahia Eraina Hurihanganui, a huri tēnei o Kahurangi rangitāne hoki. It is my pleasure to be with you, and my lovely colleague Michael has just reminded me of the difference in timetables that we share. So for those of you who are tuning in now from 11 a.m. on the 18th of June, tēnā koutou. And for those of you who have been with us for the past 10 to 15 minutes, tēnā hoki a koutou. Please be advised that this program is being recorded online on our website, but also as a podcast. So if you are wanting to get your hands on this, or your ears to tune in at a later stage, that's absolutely possible. You're joined here with me and my beautiful daughter Mareikura Ana Castorina, toru tau tana pakeke. E haere ana ia ki te kura o Montessori I konei whakaoriori. Engari te rā nei, e noho ana ia ki taku taha, hei hoa pūmau, hei hoa tautoko hoki mo te kaupapa nei. So she would normally be at the Montessori preschool down the road here in Masterton, but I'm very happy that she is going to sit here with me for this radio show so that we can go together and have a beautiful time, mum and daughter. Those of you who've been listening in, you've just heard about my lovely week with Ace Aotearoa over in Wellington. Okay, she wants to come and say hello to everyone. Hara mai. So those of you who can see the visual, you will see my beautiful Mareikura Ana here with me. Every once in a while I may help her articulate some of her thoughts for us. Of course, her opinion is probably more important than mine with some of the kaupapa that we're about to talk about. Last week I opened up sharing a little bit about myself and where I'm from using our beautiful Māori concept, if you like, of whakawhanaungatanga or me te mihi mihi, the idea of connecting with one another. As I am new to this show, so do please be with me as I struggle through all of the different connections and things I've got to juggle in this 1 hour show. And I did that by introducing a beautiful waiata, a beautiful oriori of my father's, John Kapua Hurihanganui, and introducing you all to various concepts of Te Ao Māori. I'm going to continue that today, but I'd like to place us within this context of maramataka. So maramataka was a real feature from last week because we were just out of whiro, our new moon, or pipiri, and we spoke about pipiri being the first month of the Māori lunar calendar of our beautiful Indigenous time system. Now, as we move through pipiri, we are nearing Matariki celebrations, and we wait for a really particular lunar phase, which is our last quarter. Our last quarter are our tangaroa, tāne and rongo phases. Some of you may recognise those beautiful atua. They're of course our atua of nutrients, of nourishment, of sustenance, of growing and planting. And so what I'd like to do today is bring back one of the resources I referenced last week, but I'm going to show you better. Hopefully, those of you who have the visual reference either live or in future, you can see this. This is one of the many guides that are available to us, and it's from Te Wai Orangatanga, allright.org.nz. It's a dial. And what we want to do with this dial is match up when the new moon whiro occurs, and this month it was the 10th. That's what the inner dial is. So you've got the normal Gregorian time system, or the Western time calendar, if you like. We match up the 10th, which was the new moon, to whiro, the name of the new moon in the maramataka Māori. And then we can see that the 18th is pointing to a certain name on the outside of the dial. Again, if you don't have the visual reference, that's absolutely okay. You will be able to see our maramataka lists on Reorua Facebook or the Reorua website. What I'm going to do now is just read out what's on this particular dial, and then make a couple of comments before moving to our first waiata o te rānei. So we are in Tamatea, and Tamatea is a particular low energy of the maramataka. It is a particular energy because not only is it low, but it's a really hard time to have serious conversations about serious things, because confrontation is going to be uplifted during this time, which means that people are going to feel a little bit impatient during conversations, and confrontation is not going to be accepted lightly. And therefore, ko te pakanga pea, te āhuatanga rānei, o te kōrero. So, you might find that you're fighting or warring more than you need to. So we try to steer clear of any confrontation during this period. The other thing about tamatea energy is it's a really great time to be in your garden for planting. Now, of course, we're in winter, so you don't want to be doing too much planting, but maintenance is absolutely fine. Maintenance could include, of course, preparing for the year ahead and the season ahead, talking about your garden, thinking about it, just touching the soil and checking in with its properties. So over to my handy dandy, as you can see it, if you are looking at it visually, guide here. We're in tamatea tūhaha, be cautious, an unpredictable time, a good time for taking notice, for keeping learning, and for giving back. I'll just repeat that. A good time for taking notice, keeping learning, and giving back. Now, last week we brought in the phrase for matariki, which is a beautiful greeting and a reminder that we already have some stunning reo Māori to be celebrating this time of the year. There is absolutely no point or sense to use different ways from te reo Pākehā and translating them into te reo Māori if we've already got the language for it. So instead of hape matariki or hari matariki, which is what we'd say for a birthday or for Christmas, we're going to instead use a rangi mā tāmua and he mikeli wanda, manawatia a matariki. Manawatia a matariki is greetings for this beautiful pipiri and matariki matariki season. Now we are going to be waiting for the beautiful stars of matariki to rise between the 2nd and the 5th of July for those beautiful lunar months of our atua, using their wonderful energy and guidance. Before we get to more of that discussion and explore more about my father's oriori specials, I'm going to bring you one of his new oriori so that I can respond to my daughter, who is very loudly and clearly wanting and needing my attention. This next waiata is another of my father's, and it is another oriori, but it's not mine. It is for my brother Aperahama te kapua I waho. It was written in 1992 here in Whakaoriori. Ko ho kai ana tēnei nā tōku pāpā a John Kapua Hurihanganui mō tōku tungane a Aperahama te kapua I waho whakarongo mai.
Nau mai rā e tāku tau puta mai ki tae ao nei au e mai ue a mai Takahia ki tō te pai Ko te maunga kuau nei Kimi hea rā e te tau Ko ngā ke te tōru nei Au e mai Ue a mai O te tua uri e Ko te tua te a e Te aro nui e Au e mai Ue a mai Nau mai rā e tāku tau Puta mai ki tae au nei au e mai ue a mai takahia ki tō te pai ko te maunga ku au nei ki mihiara e te tau ko ngā ke te toru nei au e mai ue a mai ko te tua uri e ko te tua te a e te aro nui e au e mai ue a mai nau maira e taku tau nau mai e taku tamai waho e nau mai ki tai au ki te au marama marama o kai kai ana o ai te kopu moe he waria kei te putara nei nā waira ka hokai rā urunui tutu ki maro nei ki taia te ao marama ti oro oro whakataka manawa taku tamai waho ti oro oro puta ke kirunga i totu rangata whito ko ngahu au e tiraha roto e aku ringa huru kanapa iho mai rare hua uru noa te hae a tapu he whetu marama ti oro oro whakataka manawa taku tamai waho ti oro oro puta ke kirunga i totu rangata whito tukurere atu rato wairua kia whia tui o tipuna oroto o ngati o mairangi ko ngā manga i ngā o tama te kapua ti oro oro whakataka manawa taku tamai waho ti oro oro puta ke kirunga I tō tūrangata whito Tūkurere wairua Tūpuna Ngāti o Mairangi Taka mana wa taku tamai waho Tioro Puta ke kirunga I tō tūrangata whito Tioro
Ko Kahurangi te atua I te rangi Ka moe Ia te kurai monoa, ka puta ko ngā tio homairangi, ka whakapapatia, ko rua muturangi, ko taunga, ko mawake, ko uruika, ko rangitapu, ko atua matua me ngā rā kaumātahi pūerua, ko haumaitawhiti, ka puta, ko tamate kapua te tangata. Ko kahumata momoe me te rotorua nui, ko tawa ke moe tahanga, ko ue nuku mai rarotonga, ko rangitihi, ko tūhourangi te iwi. Ko uenuku ko pako, ko whakaue kai papa te hapū, ko tūtāne kai. Ka puta, ko te whatumairangi, ko hurunga te rangi, ko te whatumairangi, ko moke moke, ko te awai manukau, ko te aonui, ko pinohi, ko ihaia, ko hoana, ko karai he ka moe, ia te hurihanganui ka puta, ko te kapua iwaho. Ka moe a miriata, ka puta, ko apera hama, te kapua iwaho. Ka moe ia hine ki Hawaii, poutu, ka puta, ko hone, ko John, kapua hurihanganui. Ka moe ia Shelley Rūtene, ka puta, ko ahau, ko Te Ataahia Eraina Hurihanganui. Thank you and welcome back to Kahurangi on Arrow FM, part 2 of session 1. You're here to get to know me and my whānau and my voice and perspective. From Ngāti Kahungunu, from Rangitane, but also from my Te Arawa side. The long version of the song that I've just played was both my oriori, no mai e taku tau, and the oriori for my brother Aperahama, who's second in line after me, Hokai Kaiana. I apologise, I did have them playing together one after the other, which I actually thought was quite fitting. It sounded like the waiata took its own wairua and overtook my show for a second there, but it was a nice connection into session 1. We spoke about oriori last time and the naming of Masterton whakaoriori for those lullabies that were heard by outsiders from this rohe, from this area, when they would come in and all they would see is bush, a huge, dense ngahere of thick forest, but they would hear the oriori that our whānau, in particular our women, would carry above the tree line. That's what they would hear, and that became whakaoriori. What was beautiful about that time, of course, is the idea that we would hear the oriori of our people, but also ngā ti oriori o ngā manu, the bird song as well, a bird song that we don't hear in its prominence anymore today. The whakapapa that I've just gone through are some of the names and words you would have heard in Dad's second song, Hokai Kaiana, for my brother, including Ngāti Homairangi. So the whakapapa starts from an atua named Pūhaorangi, and we're going to get into an atua section in the next few sessions, but Pūhaorangi sat in our spirit world alongside other well-known atua, and the story goes that he fell in love with a woman called Te Kurai Monoa, who was on land, most likely in one of our Hawaiki, our original home places. They eventually birthed a child called Oho Mairangi, and Oho Mairangi was a very well-known tohunga, priest and expert in all sorts of things, who lived in a hapu in Hawaiki. Many people can trace their lineage and whakapapa to Oho Mairangi. And Oho Mairangi, of course, was the carrier of our karakia and our oral traditions. I went through a number of names until Te Atua Matua or Atua Matua. Atua Matua was our waka builder. For those of you who follow Vikings like I do with my husband, he's the floki of my whakapapa Māori. A beautiful woodcarver, a very skilled artist, navigator, explorer who created the double-hulled waka, which would eventuate to be Te Arawa's waka. His son, Homai Tawhiti, was a rangatira at the time of the hapu of Ngāti Oho Mairangi, but was quite frail and old when they decided to depart Hawaii for the lands of Aotearoa. And so he gave and gifted the honour of being head navigator and I suppose the rangatiratanga of those people to his son, Tama Te Kapua. Tama Te Kapua, I'm just shaking my hand in the corner here. Mare cura non posso parlare in questo momento. Tama Te Kapua successfully brought his people Ngāti Oho Mairangi to Aotearoa. However, on their way here, they ran into Te Parata. Te Parata is known to be a really well-known swirling force of water between the Pacifica Islands and us. It is said to be something that occurs every once in a while by a pot of whales, I believe. Reihānea Tīpoki. I hope to get you into the studio to correct me or to define it a little bit more and describe it a little bit more, because I know you know what I'm talking about. However, Te Parata in a Te Arawa oral history is often described as a taniwha. Quite a force of water which almost completely drowned our people and the double-hulled waka. What happened during the ordeal was that the double-hulled waka split and became two separate waka. And the people fought for their lives and fought to get through it, and they did eventually arrive here safely to Aotearoa. They renamed themselves from Ngāti Oho Mairangi to Te Arawa. Te Arawa is known as a very fierce hammerhead shark in our Pacific waters, and it was in recognition of the fight and the grit that our people had, which really was an attribute of that shark, Te Arawa. Kahumata Momoi, Tama Te Kapua's son, was he who named many of the natural features around the Rotorua area, as well as a number of his descendants. We came down to Kahurangi, an ancestor of mine, which is now one of my iwi names. We came down to Whakauwe, which is one of my hapu names. Tūtānekai, that's a story for another day. Beautiful flutist. Another rangatira and ancestor of mine, who of course some of you may know from the Tūtānekai and Hinemoa love story of Te Arawa. And we came all the way down to Te Hurihanganui. And this is really important for me to share with you all, as I know many of the community here in Wairarapa know my father well as John and as Matua Hone or Matua Hurihanganui. And that's of course the name that I share with him. Te Hurihanganui came from the Tarawera eruption. In the late 1800s, 1880s, in a very cold time of the year in June, unfortunately, my people who were living around by the pink and white terraces, the Tarawera volcano, they experienced tragedy like no other when it decided to erupt. They did have some tohu and they were prepared on a number of levels. However, it destroyed the pink and white terraces and the village that my whānau were living in. During the time of the eruption, one of my ancestors was giving birth, and she successfully birthed a child, a young boy. And in her panic to escape and to survive and to make sure the rest of her whānau were okay, she wrapped the boy up into a whatupōkeka, a traditional Māori blanket. She placed the whatupōkeka in a tree, ran away with the crowd, and eventually they came back to find that everything was covered in soot and lava and everything else that happens in the eruption of a huge maunga. One thing was living in amongst all the black and grey and brown, and it was this one patch of grass with the tree in it blooming and a crying baby wrapped up in his whatupōkeka. They took the baby, her newborn son who survived the tragedy, and together walked inland to Rotorua. And if you know where Tarawera is, it's a long, long walk. When they got there, they found new land around the lake's borders. and rehomed themselves to a place called Ohinemutu, which stands today. Many of you know Ohinemutu and the Tama Te Kapua house after our navigator who brought us here. When they finally settled enough to name the child, they decided they would take him as their tohu, their symbol of survival and transformation for a better and for a new life in a new place. Te Hurihanganui, the great transformation. Te huri means to change or to transform. Hanga means to build or rebuild, and nui, something big or important. So the two songs that I've let you listen to are in honour of Oriori and Whakaoriori, where we are here and now, but also in honour of Te Arawa, the other ancestors and their legacies that I wear in my name and in my soul and in my own mana, and in tribute to my father who brought Te Reo Māori back, not single-handedly, with a collective of other beautiful mana, brought it back here. So I'd like to just move on to another song now so that I can help my lovely daughter, and I'll be back very soon. This next song is in tribute to her, and its name is Mārekura.
Wahine kapa mai Ki roto E ngā rangi e tu whera atu nei Kei te kapa mai Te haki E ngā rangi rongo tia mana e Hoki mai Ki te wā kahenga E te tuki te tumanako Ki te kapa mai Te haki E ngā rangi rongo tia mana e Pāmai tore waroha Ki te pai o Aotearoha E ngā iwi o Aotearoha Haere mai Titiro ki ngā oia Go e nei Au e te aroha Me te mamai Tahe me taru e tahe me te maru wharu tanga teitei Kia ora kora whetu haere mai Hoki mai Ki te wakainga Te tutuki te tumanako Ki te kapa mai Te haki E ngā rangi rongo tia mana
Kia ora, anō tātou katoa. Thank you very much, Michael, for stepping in for me. I had to depart very briefly to help my little darling out with a quick emergency, but we're back here now, and I do appreciate your support, Michael. The song that came in and took over the song that we were playing, Māori Kura, which was beautifully performed by one of my most favourite groups, the Modern Māori Quartet, with Awhi Mai Fraser, is a song about our Māori Kura, which could actually be a synonym for our program name, Kahurangi, the idea of something prized, treasured, prominent. Our Māori Kura, of course, are our female leaders, strong voices, strong bodies, and strong legacies. Now, the reason why I wanted to play it after our beautiful kōrero about Te Arawa and my connection to Te Arawa, of course, and Dad's contribution to our lovely Wairarapa reo revitalisation over the decades, was to honour my ancestors in particular who were female, and in that story of Te Hurihanganui being born, it was in regards to the fierce mother that birthed him during an eruption of our maunga tarawera, wrapped him up into te whatu pōkeka, knowing, despite it all, despite the confusion and the destruction of outside, that Te Ao Māori would wrap him up and keep him safe for her return to him, and that he would carry the name of the big transformation. So this was a song in honour of her and her legacy and her birthing practices, who saved a son and also a hapu. We carry that name to this day, and there was another name who featured prominently in both of the oriori of my fathers and in the whakapapa that I followed with, and that name is Kapua. Te Kapua I Waho, which is the description of the cloud that lingered after the Tarawera eruption of June 1886, I believe. And that kapua, or that cloud, was so thick it lingered for some time. Some people say for months. But it's also another description of something that is out there, something more, that through times of tragedy we can look at hope and possibility for a change or a new beginning. Te Hurihanganui grew up, and he married, and he had a child, and he named that child Te Kapua I Waho, to carry the legacy and the story and the history of our people, with the hope that the sky name would continue through the generations forevermore. And that's something about me that I wanted you all to know as we're getting to know each other, of course, through our whakawhanaungatanga and mihi mihi session, part 2. I do carry a sky name, Te Ataahia, and we'll get to that name very soon, but so too do my siblings. I have 3 siblings. You've just been introduced to Aperahama, Te Kapua Iwaho, who carries the name, of course, and we've made sure that our children carry those names too, including Marekura, who's here today. So Marekura, the story goes that up in the heavens, or up in the skies, in the highest layer or level of Ranginui, we have, of course, Te Whare Wānanga, a very special whare that houses the knowledge holders of ngā kete toru, the 3 baskets that Tāne eventually climbed to grasp, to hold and obtain, and bring down to Te Whenua ki Papa Tuanuku. And the protectors of that whare, of the whare of knowledge, are female, and their names are Marekura. So it's no surprise, of course, that Marekura means something treasured, prized, and prominent. They're, of course, the knowledge holders. Now, this goes back to the theme that I'm going to be going into next week, which is, of course, our birthing practices, because Māori truly believe that that highest place of knowledge, that layer of Ranginui, where our kete e toru sat within, is the womb, is the symbol of the womb, and that the baby within its womb, has a lot to tell us about. And I'd really like to explore that with you next week. Moving right along with our program as we near the conclusion of it for today, I really thank you for listening in to Arrow FM Kahurangi program with me, Te Ataahia, my beautiful daughter Marekura, who's here. You've been introduced to a couple of songs, a few stories about my name and the people who are important to me and who make up who I am and all of the knowledge that I carry. I do want to acknowledge the second song that came on just in this last bit, Hoki Mai and Pā Mai. Many of you, I'm sure, had a bit of a sing-along to that. I sure did when I walked back into the studio. This version, I want to acknowledge the High Marks. The High Marks are a Māori group from way back. And I was introduced to the High Marks as a little baba at the same age as Marekura, 3 years old, by my granddad, Ron Mitchell-Rutene, who's from Te Whiti here in Wairarapa. They're a beautiful band who play and sing, or played and sang, Māori songs, if you like, from the war. So Te Kapua Iwaho, who I mentioned earlier, was my great-grandfather and the son of Te Hurihanganui. When he grew up in his early 20s, he had 2 children, very young, so little toddlers at the time, very close in age, and he decided that he would fight for Aotearoa and the Māori battalion overseas in the Great World War. He went along, signed up with his brother, and they were the penny divers from Whakarewarewa village, where my father eventually grew up himself, and they took off with a number of other Māori representing Aotearoa and never made it home. He is buried in El Alamein, Egypt, ki Ihipa, and my brother Aperahama Te Kapua Iwaho Hurihanganui, whose song and whose oriori you've just been introduced to, has recently had a little fella, and he's beautiful and he's thriving. He's a month old as of yesterday, and he's at home with his mama Abby Hodaki. And I just want to shout out to them today, because I know while they've said they won't listen in, that they probably are listening in very cheekily. Tēnā koutou, e noho ana i te kāinga, he mihi mahana, he mihi mai oha tēnei kia koutou, he mihi nui rawa tēnei kia koe te tau e Ihipa. Ihipa is the Māori transliteration for Egypt in relation and an acknowledgement of our koro, Te Kapua Iwaho, buried at El Alamein, Egypt. Te Hono ki Ihipa is his full name, the connection to Egypt. And so I just thought how fitting that we're talking about Abis, Aperahama, my brother, that we play a song from that time. Hoki Mai and Pā Mai are both songs that speak about the beautiful women who stayed behind to raise their tamariki mokopuna while their men were overseas fighting, some who never actually made it home. So those women had to carry on and, rebuild and retransform lives. He hurihanganui anō tērā. So, number 3. Our third in line was born in 1996, and we call her Baba to this day. Her middle name is Marekura, and she is a fiery one. She's a beautiful soul, and her name is Te Niwa Marekura Hurihanganui, my sister, our sibling. A Marekura in her own right, so much so that I needed to call my daughter after her lovely role model of an auntie. So this is a shout out to you, Baba. Some of you may recognise her name, Te Aniwa, as an RNZ journalist, reporter and presenter. And so this is really her gig, hence why I'm so nervous every week. But I do want to just say kia ora, kia koe, e te teina. This is a big shout out to you. She's on her way home this week because there are a few pānui at the end of the show, and one of them, of course, is our Kāretan Old Timers Day. Just thought I'd just quickly put in a plug. Now, while I'm having a tutu with my phone now to get one of our last songs for today's session, I want to introduce you to our baby, Tama Te Kapua. Some of you know Tama as Tams or Tama from Waiko. He was a Wairarapa college boy like my sister Te Aniwa. And Tama Te Kapua came along and he was born in 1997. So that's us, that's who we are. And Dad, he didn't really get around to writing full oriori for both of them. I know he's got draft versions of both, and that's why I can't play them. They haven't been ever recorded in a studio, so that might be something someone might want to do with Dad one day. That would be wonderful. However, there is a song that comes to mind when I think about Tama. And it's a song I'm going to play for you very soon. But to give you some context, Tamalums, our baby came along and Mum and Dad decided to name him after our rangatira, who you've just heard about in my whakapapa, Tama Te Kapua, the navigator and explorer. And what's so stunning about Tama Te Kapua is that he was really young. He was a young rangatira and leader. And so with that kind of immaturity, he carried with him a lot of kind of cheekiness, lots of wit and humour. He was super agile, energetic, funny, and really calm and friendly in lots of the stories that you hear. Some of those moments resulted in some pretty dire moments for others. However, Tama Te Kapua really does fit his name and suit his name. So that idea of kind of calmness and sitting comfortably within one's own skin, that's everything my little brother exudes. And because I'm sure you will get to know Te Aniwa on here at some point in time, because of her skill, I will definitely get her in the studio, and Aperahama lives locally. I do want to just really take this time to honour our baby, Tama Te Kapua, who's in his early 20s now and is studying to be a doctor over at Otago University, based in Te Whanganui a Tara, over the hill. Who knows, I might get him into the studio. But if I don't, this is for him. And this song was made big during the last matatini, pre-COVID, of course, by a te arawa group called Te Piku Kōtuku. However, I'm going to play the cover just so that you can hear it clearly. Unfortunately, some of our kapa recordings aren't loud enough for you to hear clearly, and I really want you to hear the words to this song, which I think is like a lovely tone to encapsulate everything that Tama Te Kapua, my youngest brother, is. So this song is called Te Ataahia, and this cover is by Daniel and Ashley. If you don't know them, they are on YouTube. They're a beautiful Korean couple who make covers of Māori songs. Kei konei raua, e waiatana Te Ataahia.
Ko Te Ataahia, atatuhi atarapa, mai a te putanga, o tamanui te rā. Ko te ataha para, te putanga o tamanui te rā. Ko te ataha para mahia te pō. Ki te whai au, ki te ao marama. Kōrihi te manu, ko ki te oro, ko te atapo. Te kopara e kua ke I te ata. Kaua te a, ki te whai au, ki te ao marama.
Tēnā no tātou katoa. That was a beautiful cover by Daniel and Ashley, our beautiful whanaunga koreana. Te Atamahina, a wonderful song written and performed at the last matatini by Te Piki Kōtuku, one of our kapa from Te Arawa, in acknowledgement of my Te Arawa roots, my lovely father and my wonderful 3 siblings, a Pirahama te kapua I waho, te a niwa niwa mareikura and tama te kapua, all of whom share sky names because of our beautiful legacy and whakapapa tupu haorangi and Ngāti Oho Mairangi. Tēnā koutou. So welcome back into the last part of part 2, session 1, introductions to Kahurangi on Arrow FM. This is Te Ataahia Eraina Hurihanganui. It has been such a pleasure exploring who I am with everyone, and I really hope that you all have the opportunity to connect in with me at some point. If you don't know where to find me, I am on Facebook, Reorua. Otherwise, you can find me at my website, www.reorua.co.nz. I'm here not just using that Reorua hat, but of course as a trustee of Rangitane Tūmaira Trust. So if you want to connect with me through our trust, that's absolutely fine. And of course as an uri o Ngāti Kahungunu. For any story ideas, any pānui you may have, get in with me, knowing that every Friday we will have the hour together to explore our kahurangi in the community. My hope next week is to really delve into those birthing practices that I've been talking about over the last 2 sessions, in particular the ori, but I really want to look at how our tupuna here in Wairarapa performed them with, hopefully, one of our kahurangi, Uncle Ra Smith, who knows a lot about our wai. And it was, of course, our wai, our waterways, that really helped our tupuna to navigate the many ceremonies that were performed at the birthing of a child. Talking about children and our beautiful babies, I do want to acknowledge Mareikura Anna, who's here with me again today, my 3-year-old, and my 6-year-old Mario Kapua, who isn't here. Tinana engari ke konei a Wairua. He's at Montessori at Southend and Taratahi. I'm certainly feeling like he's missing out on lots of fun in the studio today, but he is here in his spirit, and you would have heard in his name Kapua. He follows in that those footsteps of his uncles and his grandfather, carrying the kapua name from the Te Arawa Tarawera eruption, if you like. Mareikura, of course, carries the legacy of her tūpuna wāhine with Mareikura in her name, and we'll get to Anna and Mario at another stage about our hononga ki Itaria. This week, of course, was our hononga ki Ihipa, but now that you've got Mareikura in the studio, I just want to finish with a few pānui and a few resources and references before I wrap up. So I brought in with me today He Puka Puka Tēnei book, and it's called Matariki Chamme di Stelle. So it's a Matariki themed collection of poems, and they're written by predominantly wahine, but Māori writers and poets from all over Aotearoa. They've been collected, and they're either Matariki themed or Te Ao Māori themed. So I'm going to repeat the title if you can't see it, of course. Matariki Chamme di Stelle, You can find this in some bookshops. Otherwise, if you Google it, you'll understand how to get hold of the places that the publisher goes to connect with audiences. These here are contemporary Māori poems that have been translated first into English and then into Italian, which I just think is absolutely stunning for those of us who are really interested in languages and cultures in general, but also the connection that language can make and communication between the different cultures can make in terms of the depth and the understanding of who is who and how we are all tangata whenua, tangata o te moana. So a really nice little book for matariki, particularly as we head towards our Tangaroa Luna phases. I have also brought in another of my favourite books. Eventually I will have my friend Ricky Anderson come in here and be our book expert, our puka puka expert. But this one here is called The Imaginary Lives of James Pōneke, a novel by Tina Makereti. This novel was actually recommended to me by Dr. Moana Jackson. As some of you may know, Dr. Moana Jackson is our expert in many things, actually, in Te Tiriti o Waitangi and constitutional law and so on and so forth. Ngāti Kahungunu, of course, beautiful man. But the wonderful thing about this book, Mare kura waihotia kao. Lascia, grazie. Sorry, we've got our little one having a bit of play with the microphone. The wonderful thing about this book is it explores a part of our history that I know many of us don't know anything about, and it was the stealing and kidnapping of Māori children and taking them over to England and Europe to be raised. This is, of course, the novel. So it's non-fiction, but it's an exploration of the possibilities of what happened to those lives and a reimagination of them. Really wonderfully written by Tina, articulated so beautifully through his eyes, and just I think a wonderful acknowledgement of people like James Pomare and all of those missing lives, if you like. Now, pānui. I've got a number of things to say, but I'm just going to make it brief. The first thing is, tomorrow night, our Remarkable Women Awards is being held at the Solway Showgrounds. Today and tomorrow, of course, we've got the workshops happening. If you are interested in anything business, if you are a woman in business, if you just want to connect with what's going on in our community, because of course we all know many of our rangatira wahine are carrying lots of beautiful kaupapa here, then head along to the Solway Showgrounds. There's lots happening, but tomorrow is the big award ceremony. It's the first of its kind, and I'm just going to read out really quickly the nomination categories. There are just so many women here, and they very, very much are a small percentage of all of the beautiful women in business in Wairarapa. Innovation, young business women to watch. Promotion of tikanga Māori. More FM, remarkable inspiration. Exceptional marketing, resilience in the face of adversity. Contribution to conservation and environmental protection. MDC Awards for Outstanding Wisdom and Guidance. Contribution to Wairarapa's community. These awards are going to be fantastic. I know most of the official tickets have sold out, but there are a number of women who can't make the event who have tickets, and they're trying to sell them. So please head on to the Facebook page. Remarkable Women have their own page and an event page that you can connect in with. I believe Nikki King is one of the organisers, so you might see her on there. Do come along if you can to support those wonderful women who've been nominated. Reorua will be there, among other Māori women. O reira kia koutou ngā mare kura o Wairarapa, ngāti kahungunurangi tāne hoki. Tēnā koutou, ko te tūmanako, ka ki te tātou ia tātou i te pōrā, i hātarei. Engari, ko tēnei te mihi maioha ki e rātu mare kura whatu kura hoki e mahi ana i te mahi. Those of you who are working hard in our communities, daie, we say in Italian, awesome stuff. The other thing is, of course, our Karatin Old Timers Day. For those of you who are connected to the Karatin Rugby Club in any way, please come along and support. There are a number of events happening. Of course, we've got both our senior teams playing, but a number of our baby teams playing as well, starting with our Ripper games in Featherston, actually, before heading to the Karatin Club for the others. That's me for today. Thank you again for listening in. And again, while I try to play around with my phone that keeps turning off, I need to make sure that stays on there for next time. he nui rawa ngā kaupapa mo tēnei nā program, Kahurangi. No reira, waia mai, tuku I mera mai ki au kia Te Ataahia ki runga e reo rua ki te ipurangi, kia Facebook pukamata rānei. Tēnā koutou, kia ora rā tātou katoa, ko tēnei atu mai rā e mihi atu nei, ko rangitāne tēnei, ko kahungunu tēnei, kia ora rā. Ko Te Ataahia tēnei mō Kahurangi. We'll see you all next week. Mauri ora, kia tātou.